Welcome to the sweatshop at Nike's world headquarters, where nearly every employee spends his or her lunch hour. They dress from head to toe in Nike garb, and they push and they pump the Nike image. Nike has dazzled Wall Street and sent thousands of jobs overseas, created fortunes, and destroyed friendships.
I think they lost their heart, their soul.
Everyone inside the company is family and everyone outside is enemy.
I think the image that they try to portray is a facade.
The man behind the Nike image is 54-year-old Philip Knight, the company's chairman, CEO, and co-founder.
The whole company existence is built around making superior product for athletes to run faster, jump higher, and throw farther.
Knight runs the largest athletic shoemaker in the world, a $3.5 billion company. But more important than the money is winning, an obsession that goes far beyond America's shores into Europe and Japan.
I think that Nike or somebody else will grab the lead in each of those markets. So I think it's not just an opportunity. We better win it or we'll be losing market share back at home.
When you walk through this campus and you're looking at what it's become, Nike, what do you think about?
Oh, I think there's probably 98% of the time I think about either the problems or the opportunities out ahead. And there's maybe 1 or 2% of the time, well, step back and say, it's a long way from my mother's laundry room.
Where it all started.
Where it began, yeah.
An accountant with an MBA from Stanford, Knight came up with the idea while writing a school paper about importing low-cost shoes and selling them to students and athletes. While on a world tour after grad school, Knight stopped in Japan, where he spent $37 on sample shoes from a Japanese manufacturer. He then teamed up with his former track coach, Bill Bowerman from the University of Oregon, and together they began Nike's forerunner, Blue Ribbon Sports.
We made the deal with a handshake and $500 apiece.
It was a partnership Bowerman kept secret, even from his own athletes. He thought coaching and owning a shoe company would look like a conflict of interest. Meantime, he set about designing track shoes, including the ones worn by the late Steve Prefontaine.
Here's a Prefontaine shoe. This one here, he ran this shoe for 10,000 meters and broke the American record. It weighs right at 5 ounces. We don't have a shoe that's that light, and we don't make one. Neither does anyone else. We should.
While Bowerman's passion was designing, Knight's was surviving.
We started 20 years ago at zero, and we grew. And the early days, the concerns were always about money. We never had any.
Everyone's heard of Nike, but how many of you know what it means? Well, this is Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. And the story goes, it came to the company's first employee one night in a dream. That was back in 1971, and it happened to be the night before they had to figure out a name for their shoe boxes.
The swoosh was already a familiar trademark. The idea for that came from a college student who was paid $20 to design the logo. The first Nikes are on display in Prefontaine Hall, a museum on the campus of Nike's world headquarters. So are Bowerman's handmade prototypes and a waffle iron, like the one Bowerman poured rubber into when he designed Nike's waffle trainer. But missing from this museum are some of the men who helped turn this once fledgling company into a giant. Sonny Vaccaro put Nikes on some of the most famous feet in basketball.
Now, Phil knows what I did, and I know what I did. And as long as he owns it and he's president, he can't erase that chapter. I see statements.
What Vaccaro did was bring college basketball to Nike. Coaches got paid. Their kids got free shoes.
No one else did what we did with the college coaches. We had whole teams wear the shoe on national television, become national.
Vaccaro's college players graduated to the NBA. Kids already wearing the Nike brand weren't likely to switch once they turned pro. By 1983, Nike had more than half the players in the NBA in swooshes and on its payroll. It wasn't long before they had too many. That's when company honchos decided to cut their NBA roster. And that's when Vaccaro told Nike about a 20-year-old college junior named Michael Jordan.
Of all the kids that were playing at that time, he was a kid that could communicate with the world. Because he was someone you could love.
Jordan left the University of North Carolina in his junior year, and he went third in the NBA draft to Chicago.
This is the Michael Jordan building on Nike's campus. Nike signed Jordan back in 1984. He was fresh out of college. It was the first time a shoe company took such a big risk with one athlete. They signed Jordan to a $2.5 million contract over 5 years. That's more money than he was making playing for the Bulls. And you know what? He didn't even want to sign with Nike.
I wasn't a Nike fan. I was Adidas fan. I went back to the Adidas rep that I knew, and I told him exactly what the deal was with Nike. And I told him, if you come anywhere close, if you sign anywhere close to what Nike was going to sign me for, I would go to Adidas. They never came close, and I ended up with Nike.
Is it the vicious stumps?
No march.
It's gotta be the shoes. Shoes.
And that was a turning point. Jordan was the comeback Nike needed after being bumped to second place by Reebok, who cashed in on a crazy new exercise called aerobics. Nike didn't. It was Michael Jordan who put Nike back on top. But Jordan's good fortune didn't rub off on the man who brought him to Nike.
You know, I don't think you have to have a darn suit and tie and corporate bottom line to a lot of things. You know, that's not the way. It's not the way America was built. That's not the way it's going to continue. If you keep it that way, every young kid with an idea is going to never get off the ground.
What happened exactly when you left Nike?
I think I wanted to do other things, and they wouldn't let me do other things. I really wanted to expand my horizons.
Others who left the company echo the same sentiment.
I don't think they're trying to erase history. I just think they're trying to remove the personalities from it. That what he's trying to do is to say that the company did these things, that it wasn't individuals that did those things.
Peter Moore designed the Jordan Stickman logo. He and business partner Rob Strasser are widely recognized as the creative force behind Nike's enormously successful Nike Air and Air Jordan lines.
I mean, how many designers can say they were involved in this or in the making of a great brand?
You still miss it a lot, don't you?
Moore and Strasser left Nike in 1987, saying the company had become too large, that insiders were trying to squelch their creativity. But unlike Moore, Strasser took a fortune in Nike stock with him. He now lives with his wife in this plush penthouse high above the city of Portland and overlooking the Willamette River.
Hello?
Julie Strasser is a former Nike advertising manager, and she is a published author, having written the only book about the company. Her unauthorized, best-selling hardback chronicles Nike's feats and foibles. Moore is one of the characters.
I've heard it said before that if you are part of Nike, you're part of the family, and if you are not, you're the enemy. Is that true?
True.
Absolutely, positively
100% true.
Now partners in Sports Incorporated, Moore and Strasser employ about a dozen former Nike hotshots. And if that's not enough, they represent one of Nike's arch rivals, Adidas. Marketing is how Nike has stayed in front of its competition. Part of its strategy, Nike Town. This past July, the company opened store number 2 in Chicago, and stores 3 and 4 are planned for Atlanta and Newport Beach.
Welcome to Nike Town in Portland, Oregon, a place that's a lot more than just a shoe store. It is a tourist destination. More than 2,000 people come through here every day, twice that many on weekends. One of the reasons is there's a mini museum inside. Let's go take a look.
Y'all ready for this?
This high-tech store features Nike's high-tech gear, shoes and clothes, and a lot more. It showcases the stuff worn by the superstars. John McEnroe's tennis shoes under glass. Bo Jackson and his cross trainers, because Bo knows shoes. And a soaring Michael Jordan, who gets a showroom all to himself. In the Jordan Room, customers get the first sneak peek of Nike's latest ads.
Today, we have a special visitor.
This commercial is part of a 7-jock blitz, a string of commercials that look like music videos and star the biggest names in the NBA. The creators, Dan Wyden and David Kennedy of Portland. Their relationship with Nike began in 1979. They introduced America to the Nike Revolution.
Say you want a revolution, well, you know.
After After the revolution, they told us to just do it. They sold us on cross trainers because Bo no shoes. They teamed up Bugs Bunny with Mike and Mike with Spike. Then they put Nikes on Spike to promote racial harmony.
There's an old saying that we always try to remind ourselves of. It's a quote from Wooden, who said, "The team that makes the most mistakes wins." So we're trying to do our best to make as many as we can.
And they're making millions in the process. Is the pressure on? You bet. Wyden says it always has been.
These guys, from day one, you always felt like the expectations of you were so high that you were always trying to live up to their expectations.
Rolling!
The agency is now working on Nike's international campaign. Phil Knight's expanding into Europe, and he's taking the Portland ad agency with him. But Nike's made-for-TV image is becoming increasingly tarnished as critics accuse Phil Knight of exporting jobs overseas. Nikes are made in Korea, Taiwan, China, Thailand, Singapore, and Indonesia, where workers make as little as 14 cents an hour. Besides buying cheap labor, Knight has lobbyists in Washington, D.C. to keep trade open and tariffs low. It's this kind of business policy Americans are getting fed up with. One group, called Made in the USA, has declared war on Nike. It's asking Americans to send Phil Knight their dirty, smelly, worn-out shoes and to not buy another pair until he builds a shoe manufacturing plant here.
If they have to make bottom-of-the-end shoes, $20 shoes, $30 shoes overseas, so be it. But we think they can make their top-of-the-line shoes here.
I don't think a company has to apologize for employing 6,500 workers in the United States and contributing the kind of dollars we do back into the U.S. economy, not at all.
Make all its goods in the U.S., it will never happen. The cost of that, says Nike, would put its products out of the consumer's reach. So mailing them your beat-up shoes may send a message, but it probably won't make a difference. What it may end up doing is making Nike more money.
Okay.
Henry Chris runs Nike's chemistry lab, where he's working on ways to recycle old sneakers.
We take the shoes, old shoes, shoes that are no longer functional, shred them, and use the polymeric or rubber-like materials to recycle. If we use recycled material in shoes now, then that shoe can then be recycled again, and it's just a continuous process.
The company is trying to clean up its image in more ways than one. After a threatened boycott 2 years ago by the civil rights group Operation Push, Nike beefed up its minority hiring practices. An African American is now on Nike's board of directors, and women are among the vice presidents. Nike says people of color make up almost 20% of its workforce. Michael Llewellyn heads up urban and minority affairs.
Of that 19.5, I'd say 75% of those, and that figure doesn't include women, I'd say 75% of those are African American.
Lemuel Brock is a supervisor in Nike's airbag division. He's been here 6 years.
I think we have a closeness that maybe some other companies don't have. You know, they've been big for a long time, and the bigger companies don't have the closeness that we have. It's a home away from home, so to speak.
He thought it was his mother. The baby bird didn't stop. He ran on.
A home away from home, not just for employees.
Play quietly.
These are the kids in Nike Tights, a child care program right on Nike's campus. It lets parents bring their kids to work with them, not just their toddlers, newborns too.
So Nelson, where in this thing did you hire me?
Right at the beginning of the best of times.
It's just one of the perks employees say makes Nike the place to work.
I'm taking tennis lessons during my lunch hour, so it's fun. I'm becoming more of a jock.
You know, I mean, it's got to be a good place to work if I've, got my sister to apply here and my brother to apply here and, the closest people in my life to be part of this place.
There are times when it feels more like a cult than a job. You really have to believe in what Nike is about, and it's not just shoes and clothes. It's about sports and fitness and all the things that represents, and in that way I think we're the wave of the future.
And so the Nike tradition continues. Unwavering loyalty, total commitment, and fierce competitiveness.
It's obviously been a great ride over the last 20 years for me, and I think for some others. But we think our greatest opportunities lie ahead, and we're excited about the future.
Do you ever look back with any regrets?
There's a lot of things I'd like to do differently, but overall, I wouldn't trade places with anybody.
I bet you wouldn't.